In this video, we will be building the Lightning Web component for the My Skills section. We will once again be using static resources to hold the three images that appear in these three cards. We're going to start off by grabbing the card example from W3 Schools. So let's open our browser and search for W3 Schools How To. Should be the first result. And if we search for cards, we should get a nice example with CSS and HTML. So it looks like this will do well. And I think I'm going to use the rounded corners example. So let's go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code and create a new Lightning Web component. And create Lightning Web component. We're going to call this one skill cards. Okay, so now that we have a place to put our stolen CSS and HTML, let's go grab our CSS, and we'll have to create a new CSS file under the skill cards folder. And paste it in there. Let's go back for our HTML. Here it is, pretty simple. And let's put that into our template. Let's fix this tabbing. Oh, that's a mess. Tab that once, and then tab that in. Okay, so let's analyze what we have here. We have an outer container called a card, and then inside that we have the image. This is that cartoon avatar image with a width of 100. Let's get rid of the style. I don't like to put style in HTML. I'm not sure why the example has that. We have a specific file for that, so let's delete that. And it looks like underneath this, we also have another class called container. I foresee us having another div around this with the class container. So I'm going to call this text container so that we don't get confused in the future. And I'm going to change this such that it's just and, so we don't have to worry about the symbols being an issue in HTML. Okay. So that looks okay. While we're thinking about it, since I did change this class name, let's go over to the CSS. And let's change that. Oh, looks like we aren't actually referencing it, so that's not an issue. Okay. We will use this class later, I believe, though. So now we have everything set up except we do not have this image. So we're going to need to substitute this image for one of our own choosing that we load into a static resource. So I do have a folder with my images for this project. And before this, I went through Midjourney and generated some cartoons for this. So let's start off with let's do all three, since we're going to need all three of these images. One for our admin skill, one for our service skill, one for our training skill. So let's go ahead and copy those. Well, I'll do it through the menu so you can see it. Copy those. And then let's go to our static resources. And we already have an image folder from our hero image earlier. So let's right click on that and say Reveal in File Explorer. Click on Images. And let's put these cartoon images in with our hero and about me images. So now we have all the images there. And they show up here in Visual Studio Code. So let's go ahead and let's deploy that static resource. So deploy source to org so that our Scratch org has access to those. So that gave us an error. Let's try to do that from the command line for the whole project. So we'll say SF project deploy start. Okay, so that succeeded. So now we have our images. Oh, in this case, our images and our new Lightning Web component on our Scratch org. Okay, so let's get rid of this terminal window. And now we need to substitute this image source with the URL from our static resource. Now we already did this once in the hero, so let's go steal that code from ourselves. And we're going to use this same static resource folder or zip file, however you want to think of it. So let's go ahead and copy that. Well, I'll just do Control-C. Copy that, and then go back to our skill cards.js. So we'll import that, and then we'll need a variable here. And we'll say, which one do we want to start with first? Let's go the admin. So admin image URL equals, and let's go back to our example here in the hero. And let's just change the name to admin PNG, which is the name of our file here in the static resource, admin PNG. So now we're setting that variable in JavaScript. We should be able to go back to our skill cards HTML and change this assignment, URL assignment, to the variable. So admin image URL. We also don't need this alternate text here, so I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, so at this point, we should be able to see something in our local development server. So let's scroll down to preview component locally using our desktop browser. And we have nothing. Okay, we aren't seeing anything. So let's investigate a little bit using the dev tool. So F12. And it looks like, this scroll up here, we have a reference error. Image URL is not defined. It looks like I probably have a misnamed variable. Look at that. Oh, yes, I copied the entire thing blindly. So we got a copy and paste error here. So admin image URL is now being assigned to the images. So I just did a bad copy and paste from right here. Let's go make sure that our variable is set appropriately. It looks like it is. So let's go back and look at our local development preview. And there we are. We're getting the image showing up. Now that image is enormous. So let's, like we did with the hero section, let's design for the mobile size first. So let's go ahead and do F12 again to get our dev tools. And let's try to make it look good in this context. That actually already looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and just work with our text elements down here to make them a little bit more appealing. And since we already have a container class, we have this div class text container. We can select our H4 and our paragraph elements to style and position the text. So let's go ahead and do this side by side so we can see the response a little bit better. I'll make that a little bit smaller to better represent a mobile display size. Okay, so with our text container, we can, let's see, we probably want to just align our H1 to be centered because we don't want our second paragraph here to be centered. We want that left justified. There'll be more text later. So let's go ahead and do text container, and we'll select the H4 element. And we'll say text align center. Save that. Should see the John Doe pop over. Okay, that's perfect. And let's give our text a little bit more size. So let's do the font size 24 pixels. That might be a little small. You might want to go up to 28 or even 32. Let's do 28. That's a pretty big image in comparison. Okay, and then we can do the same thing for the paragraph underneath. So text container, paragraph selector. Now, if we had a larger component that used a paragraph in H4 in other spots, this is how you would do it. Because we only have one H4 and one paragraph, you don't need the text container with the H4. You could just select all H4s in there. I just kind of do this as an organizational technique. Okay, so we like where the text is. It's left justified by default. So we'll just, I'm going to increase the font size just a touch. Normally the font size by default is 16 pixels. So I'm just going to scooch it up to 18. Okay, so that's looking a little bit better. Okay, at this point we kind of have our first card together. So let's go ahead and add the other two cards in the same manner. So let's go to our HTML. Well, I don't know why I opened the file selection pane. Let's just use the tabs. So let's go ahead and copy this. So we want 3 cards. Just give ourselves a couple more cards. And let's fill out this text to be a little bit more realistic. So we're going to say for one of our skills is administration. Our next skill is going to be training. And let's put some lorem ipsum in here. So lorem, I'm going to say, let's go 35 for the first one. And the second training card, let's do a little bit more. Let's go up to 50. Gives 50 words. You can see the 50 is a little bit longer than the 35. And for the last one, which is customer service, we'll just call this one service. And we'll give this one a lorem of 40. Okay, so now we kind of have some dummy text. We also need to go and have the JavaScript map the static resource to our image URL variable. So we need one for training image URL equals images training.png. And we need one for service image URL equals images service.png. Okay, so that should all be mapped up. Let's go see how it looks in our preview. And sure enough, so yeah, administration goes straight into training, goes straight into customer service. So that's good. We do need some spacing here. So we're going to want to put some margins on our cards. So if we go here and say in our card, each card class, let's say margin. Let's give them all, let's try a 10 pixel margin just to start off with. I'll give it a margin on the sides as well as the top. Okay, that actually looks pretty okay. Looks like we need some padding in our text areas. So let's go ahead and add some padding to the text container as well. And let's just do 8 pixels there. See how that looks. Oops, that's the H4. I guess that's the downside of having text container H4. I mistook it for the text container proper. So let's get rid of that padding. You can see here, well, you can't really see it there, but it added the padding just to the H4 up here. So let's go ahead, and we don't have a selector just for the container. So let's add one now. Let's see what that does for us. We might want to go with margin instead, actually. Oh, that helped. Let's see kind of what margin looks like if we do that instead. And let's do 0 for the top and bottom, and then 8 pixels. See what the difference is between padding and margin. Okay. I think I actually like the padding better. Let's see what it looks like if we do both. Okay, so that's the best so far. I think I'm just going to leave it like that. Yeah, let's just leave it like that. We don't need to tinker with this all day. So as far as mobile goes, this is actually a pretty good layout. Nice long scrolling with everything stacked. So let's go ahead and let's get this up on our Scratch org and put it into Experience Builder. So to do that, we will need to modify the skill cards meta. So right now we don't have the metadata to make it available for the Experience Builder. So let's go steal that configuration from our hero component. So we really just need this, the is exposed true, and then the 2 targets to make it available in Experience Builder. So we'll go ahead and replace that, fix the formatting. We should be all good to go there. Now at this point, we've made a lot of changes, so I'm going to just deploy from the command line again. Okay, so let's open up our org. All sites as usual. And go to Builder. Okay, now if we go to Components, scroll to the bottom, we should see the skill cards. So while we're here, let's go ahead and add that underneath our hero. And let's close that, we don't care about that. So these are absolutely enormous at this size. So let's go ahead and go to Preview, shrink this window down a little bit to make it seem a little more sane. Okay, so that doesn't look too terrible. Okay, but we need to do something about this gigantic size. At the larger screen sizes, we want all 3 of these cards to line up next to each other. So let's do that now. Now let's go to the tools, go F12. And it looks okay at 380. This is not, there we go. Yeah, it starts to get kind of big up here. So let's try something around the 700 range. Let's go to W3 schools. And yeah, the 768, I think that's what we use for the hero as well. So let's go ahead and grab that as a starting point. And we will add this media query to our skill card CSS. So everything we put in here will only take effect when the screen size is 768 pixels or larger. So for larger screen sizes, we want to add a flex display to our outer container that has our cards in it. That way they'll show up side by side. So let's go ahead and go back to our HTML, and we have our cards, but our cards are right now on the outside. They're on a template. We don't want to select the whole template. So let's add a container to the outside of these cards so that we can apply the flex display to that container. So I'm going to call this card container. And let's put these card divs inside of that container. Save that. Come back to our CSS. And now we can select that card container class. And let me get this side by side with the local server here. Although I don't know if I can make it quite wide enough to make it pop over. Let's see if it does it. So if I say card container display flex, it actually won't do anything because I also need to set the size of the cards to be smaller than 100%. So even if I made this full screen, oh no, it's not true. It managed to fit them in there. So the content is dictating the sides. It's making the one in the middle a little bit larger, possibly because the image is larger, or because that's the one with the greatest amount of text. That's probably what it is determining the size. So if we wanted to, we could leave it like this, where the cards are different sizes, which I don't actually think looks too bad. They get pretty big before they pop over. I think we might want to scale that down. So yeah, they're expanding in a non-linear way. So if you like that, you can leave it, that's fine. If you don't, what you can do is you can set a size for the cards at this size. So you can say card width is 33% of the parent container, which should roughly put it at 1/3 of the container. So yeah, now they're equal sizes. And because of that margin we put on there for the mobile, we got a little bit of a gap in between. So I think that actually looks pretty good. And at certain sizes, it does respond by switching to a single column. I could see if you want to fiddling around and making these images a little bit smaller in the mobile, or having another media query that gradually scales them down to be to have different margins depending on the size. But I think this is good enough for our purposes. So let's go ahead and deploy that to our Scratch org. Oh, I've got all kinds of stuff in my terminal window. Okay, so let's go SF deploy. Nope. Well, let's just use the up arrow. There we go. Now that we've deployed our skill cards WC to our Scratch org, let's go see how it looks in context of the rest of the page. So here we go. If you go preview it, there's the hero, and it transitions right into our cards. Now we probably need some kind of separation right here. There are two ways to do this. We could go to the components here and put in some sort of text area or something like that. But I think what I'm going to do is just go back to Visual Studio Code and put in an H1 above the container. And this could actually go in the card container or on the outside. It's kind of up to you, however you want to do it. So I'll say my skills. And then let's see what that looks like in our local preview. And of course, it's pretty small. So let's go style that up. Let's go to our skill card CSS and let's select our H1 outside of the media query. So we're going to say H1, and first we'll center the text. So we'll say text align center, and then we'll do a font size. Probably want to make it pretty big. I don't know, maybe 48 pixels. Okay, so there we have that. And if we expand it to the triple view, there's my skills. So let's go ahead and deploy that and see how it looks at the rest of our page. Okay. Okay, so now we have two sections on our homepage. In the next video, we will finish our homepage by creating the About Me section of our page.